Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Battle Through the Heavens based on novel. So let's start. Today, I have completely offended the Wind Lightning Pavilion, but I am not afraid. The Central Plains region is massive. Would I be afraid of not having anywhere to go? I don't believe that your Wind Lightning Pavilion's strength can spread across the entire Central Plains region. Xiao Yan's face revealed an expression of deep thought. He immediately spread his palm and revealed a silver-white-colored storage ring. The storage ring still contained some fresh blood on it. It was the thing the earth demon puppet had snatched from Chen Yun's finger earlier. Xiao Yan's spiritual strength spread out. However, the silver-white storage ring emitted a resistance when his spiritual strength made contact with it, reflecting his spiritual strength back. Has a spiritual imprint been placed on it? Xiao Yan coldly laughed as he sensed the resistance from the storage ring. Spiritual strength was one of his fortes. Though his actual level was much lower than Chen Yun's level, his spiritual strength was not weaker. It was not impossible for Xiao Yan to break the spiritual imprint that Chen Yun had left behind. Xiao Yan gently inhaled a breath of air. His spiritual strength controlled the silver-white-colored storage ring, which slowly surfaced in front of him. His eyes suddenly opened and a majestic spiritual strength surged from between his brows like floodwater. It violently struck the storage ring. The spiritual imprint that an elite Dozong had placed was indeed extremely strong. Regardless of what happened, however, it was merely an imprint. If the actual owner was located near this place, he would at least be able to control it from a distance. However, Chen Yun was currently rushing to heal himself. Where would he find the time to bother about the change of this spiritual imprint? The unceasing assault of spiritual strength continued for a couple of minutes, before a slight cracking sound finally appeared in the cave. Joy instantly surged into Xiao Yang's eyes when he heard this noise. He had finally removed the spiritual imprint of that old fellow. Chen Yun, who was seated cross-legged on the Sky Stone stage in Tianbei City, suddenly opened his tightly shut eyes when the spiritual imprint was broken. His eyes revealed a savage expression as he roared furiously, "Xiao Yang, the old me swears that I won't be human if I don't kill you." Most of the people had already left the Sky Stone stage at this moment. After all, everyone could see that Hong Qianxiao and Chen Yun were extremely furious at the moment. No one could tell whether they would be innocently implicated under the fury of these two old fellows. What are you roaring for instead of quickly recuperating? Hong Qianxiao, protecting Chen Yun by the side, frowned and asked in a deep voice, when he saw Chen Yun act in this manner, "The spiritual imprint in my storage ring has already been broken by that little bastard." Chen Yun grit his teeth and replied. Hong Qianxiao was startled upon hearing this. His face immediately changed a little as he said, "That brat only has the strength of a Do Huang. How could he break your spiritual imprint? Although that puppet is strong, it clearly does not possess any spiritual strength. I don't know." Chen Yun shook his head with a gloomy face. He said in a dense voice, "Once I have fully recuperated, we will leave together. That brat has the blood lightning seal that I planted in his body. He cannot escape. Relax, he has killed many people from my Hong clan. The old me will ensure that his ending won't be good." Hong Qianxiao ferociously responded, "I have already dispatched news to the Wind Lightning Pavilion. It is likely that some experts will hurry over soon. At that time, that brat will have difficulty escaping." Chen Yun glanced at his hand with one missing finger. The viciousness on his face was so dense that it caused a chill to rise in one's heart. Xiao Yang shut his eyes slightly as he sat in the cave, which was filled with warm light. A silver-white-colored ring in front of him was emitting a weak glow. A moment later, the glow slowly weakened and Xiao Yang gradually opened his eyes. A silver-colored scroll appeared in his hand when he opened his eyes. This silver-colored scroll was a little larger than an ordinary one. Its entire body was bright silver. However, if one were to look at it carefully, one would discover that there were densely packed tiny red lines on it. They were just like veins that spread to every part of the scroll. Xiao Yang's eyes looked at this scroll, and his heart had unknowingly increased his pulse rate. This was the only somewhat strange item he had found within Chen Yun's storage ring. "What is this?" Xiao Yang muttered somewhat doubtfully. He did not open it because of the strangeness of this thing. Instead, he had extended his hand and summoned the earth demon puppet. He tossed the scroll to the latter. "Open it." The earth demon puppet received the scroll. Its hand slowly opened it without any hesitation. The silver glow on the scroll suddenly soared after it had been opened. Immediately, a furious thunder-like explosion sounded and a thigh-thick lightning bolt shot out. It violently smashed into the chest of the earth demon puppet. The powerful strength sent it flying like a cannonball before smashing heavily into a wall. Cracks swiftly spread on the rock wall behind the puppet before they finally cracked apart with a bang. There is indeed something strange, Xiao Yan coldly laughed when he saw this. If he had been the one who had received that attack, he would have been seriously injured due to his lack of defense. Fortunately, the earth demon puppet had a strong physical body and was able to receive the attack in a relaxed manner. The silver scroll slowly floated in the air after having unleashed its lightning. However, there was still a lightning glow flickering on it. Xiao Yang's eyes drifted over it as he beckoned with his hand. The scroll slowly descended. When it was falling, the Do Qi in Xiao Yang's body surged and the glazed lotus heart flame transformed into a flame that wrapped around his body. The scroll did not display any unusual signs in the face of the fully armed Xiao Yang this time around. It quietly lay in his hand. Lightning flickered. It appeared like silver snakes swimming around, giving the scroll an extraordinary appearance. Xiao Yang sighed in relief after seeing no unusual changes in the scroll. His gaze landed on the scroll, and a couple of large words that were formed by the lightning glow appeared in his sight. 3000 Lightning Illusionary Body. The most prized treasure of the Wind Lightning Pavilion. It was rumored to be a Do technique passed down from the ancient times, DI class high level. Once this skill is mastered, it is possible to form a lightning illusionary body. The lightning illusionary body has a similar strength to the actual body. As long as the actual body does not die, the illusionary body will not be destroyed. This godlike effect could be described in 4 words, comparable to Qian class. Just a short line of words caused a great storm to immediately stir within Xiao Yang's heart. An avatar with a strength similar to the actual body. Moreover, the avatar would not be destroyed as long as the actual body did not die. If this was really the case, was this so-called 3000 lightning illusionary body not a little too terrifying? The description of it being comparable to Qian class was not an overstatement. It is unexpected that the Wind Lightning Pavilion actually possesses such a treasure. No wonder it is so strong. As long as one successfully practices it, a dozun would be equivalent to 2 dozun. When fighting with others, it would be 2 against 1. What kind of person within the same level could defeat 2 equivalent enemies? Xiao Yang's eyes became boiling hot, as his gaze swiftly shifted a little. Behind this line of lightning glow words was some dimmer words. Clearly, this had been added by other people. The 3000 lightning illusionary body might be frightening, but it is unusually difficult to practice. One of the requirements is that one must master the 3000 lightning movement until the highest level. During these many years, there have only been a few people throughout the Wind Lightning Pavilion who have successfully mastered it. The old me has studied it for dozens of years, but has obtained little from it. It seems that it will be hopeless in my lifetime. 3000 lightning movement. Xiao Yang involuntarily inhaled a cool breath when he read until this point. He finally understood the reason Chen Yun was so deeply affected when he saw Xiao Yang display 3000 lightning movement. This thing was actually related to the most prized treasure of the Wind Lightning Pavilion. I must thank that old fellow. Otherwise, I would not be aware of such a secretive thing. Now that the 3000 lightning illusionary body has landed in my hands, I will see just how difficult it is to practice it. Xiao Yang laughed quietly before shutting his eyes. His spiritual strength invaded the silver-colored scroll that was emitting a lightning glow. The place that appeared in front of Xiao Yang was a lightning world. Unimaginable numbers of thunderbolts came smashing down from the empty sky like a waterfall. They carried a soul-stirring bang along with a rich heaven's might. Xiao Yang's spiritual strength had just appeared in this lightning world when the numerous tilting lightning bolts seemed to have sensed him. With a Kai-La sound, they cut through the air and suddenly emitted a glow, covering the entire sky. Xiao Yang's brows were slightly knit in the face of these lightning bolts that had been shot in all directions. He knew that these were not genuine bolts of lightning, but were instead things created from spiritual strength that had been left within the scroll. This caused him to feel some joy scatter. With a tap of his finger in the empty sky, a powerful spiritual strength materialized where his finger had pressed, erupting out in an unceasing manner. The countless numbers of lightning bolts that came rushing over immediately crumbled wherever the spiritual strength moved. The lightning transforming into silver-colored light spots that permeated the sky before slowly turning into nothing. Xiao Yang broke the remnant spiritual strength within the scroll with his finger, before he slowly swept his gaze around. The entire place was filled with a glaring silver color. Below was an extremely large silver lake. Lightning swam all over the lake like silver snakes, giving it the appearance of an electric pond. There was nothing else present in this place other than the electric pond below. It was also void of any information related to the so-called 3000 lightning illusionary body. Xiao Yang's gaze scanned this space an inch at a time, before it finally paused on the electric pond below. His brows were bunched up. After musing for a moment, he once again pressed gently into the electric pond. Powerful spiritual strength swiftly surged down, and finally swept through the electric pond. The lightning glow that lingered above swiftly scattered. Following the scattering of the lightning glow, the lake gradually became as clear as a mirror. Xiao Yang's eyes were focused on the electric pond, which had turned clear. A moment later, a slight ripple quietly rose on its surface. Numerous words formed from the lightning glow wherever the ripple reached. Xiao Yang stood high in the air and looked down. He was coincidentally able to clearly read these words made out of lightning. Joy surged into his eyes. He focused his mind as his eyes carefully swept over those words, firmly remembering them in his mind. Xiao Yang mused for a moment before once again shutting his eyes. He began to slowly organize the chaotic information within his mind. This organizational process continued for nearly an hour. By the time Xiao Yang opened his eyes again, the doubt within them had already disappeared. After this long period of study, he had indeed discovered some problems. This was indeed the training method for the 3000 lightning illusionary body. However, it was incomplete. It was merely a portion of the entirety. The feeling of it possessing a defect had originated from this earlier. The 3000 lightning movement has already been divided into a few portions. This Chen Yun possessed only one of them. How regretful, Xiao Yang sighed somewhat gloomily. However, he felt that it was normal after thinking about it. Being the most prized treasure in the Wind Lightning Pavilion, how could this 3000 lightning illusionary body be placed in the hands of an elder? Placing them separately was the safest method. I wonder where the remaining portions are. If I have the chance, I will definitely gather all of them. If I am able to successfully master this 3000 lightning illusionary body, it will definitely be a great help in the future. Xiao Yang gently sighed. He once again glanced at this lightning world and shook his head. His body gradually became pale and disappeared a moment later. Following Xiao Yang's disappearance, this lightning world once again became rampant with a wild violence. Xiao Yang slowly opened his eyes within the cave. He looked at the bright silver-colored scroll in his hand and involuntarily laughed. It was not easy to obtain a DI class high-level Do technique. However, it was fortunate that he had not gained nothing. At the very least, he had obtained a portion of the method to practice the 3000 lightning illusionary body. According to his guess, the remaining portions should be in the hands of the other elders from the Wind Lightning Pavilion. If he had the opportunity in the future, he might be able to think of a way to get them. After softly laughing, Xiao Yang stored the silver-colored scroll into the serene sea ring. After which, he shifted his mind away from it. Currently, the most important thing was to remove the so-called blood lightning seal in his body. Otherwise, it would really be as Chen Yun had said. With this thing as a beacon, he would be sensed no matter where he was. Xiao Yang exhaled gently and swiftly entered his training state. His mind sank into his body and began to scan every inch of it. However, Xiao Yang was stunned to discover that there was nothing unusual within his body after the scan finished. There was not the slightest trace of the blood lightning seal. It is impossible for it not to exist. I personally witnessed that thing enter my body, Xiao Yang muttered. A thought immediately passed through his mind and the glazed lotus heart flame followed his veins, and was slowly circulated. Finally, it erupted and spread throughout every part of his body. A cluster of jade-green flames swiftly spread out as a thought passed through his mind. After which, it wrapped the seal and the vein within it. A frighteningly high temperature immediately permeated the place. Due to the glazed lotus heart flame having been completely refined by Xiao Yang, this kind of high temperature would not harm him, and it would cause his veins to feel a warm, comfortable feeling. On the other hand, that blood lightning seal had become a little distorted under the high temperature. Threads of blood-colored energy gradually turned into nothingness. As the high temperature penetrated it, this blood lightning seal does indeed possess a strangeness. Even the heavenly flame required a good amount of time in order to remove it. However, this is because my strength is a little weak. Looks like I should raise my strength as soon as possible. Perhaps I should also consume a mighty Huang pill. Xiao Yan muttered to himself. He studied the blood lightning seal as it gradually turned paler within the heavenly flame. The mighty Huang pill was a high-tier medicinal pill that was only effective to an expert Do Huang. An expert Do Huang would have the chance to raise his strength by 1 or even 2 stars if he consumed it. However, a person could only consume such a medicinal pill once, after which it would lose its effect. Fortunately, Xiao Yan had never consumed one. However, the current situation was one where he might have to rely on this thing. Once I have removed this blood lightning seal, I will find another safe place to consume the medicinal pill and raise my strength in an attempt to quickly break through to the Do Zone class. The strength of a Do Huang is far from sufficient to roam the central plains. Xiao Yan made up his mind and hurriedly focused his attention, urging the heavenly flame to swiftly refine the blood lightning seal. This refinement continued for around 2 hours, before the blood lightning seal turned into a cluster of blood-colored fog that was finally vaporized into nothingness under the grilling of the flame. Xiao Yan slowly opened his eyes when the blood lightning seal completely disappeared. He sighed in relief, appearing to have released a heavy burden as he said, "I have finally settled this now, it is time for me to leave." Xiao Yan stood up from the ground and tidied himself. After which, he returned the earth demon puppet to his storage ring and walked swiftly to the entrance of the cave. Just as he was about to open the enormous rock door at the entrance of the cave, a rumbling loud voice was suddenly transmitted from outside. The intense trembling caused the interior of the cave to become shaky. "Xiao Yang, come out." Just when Xiao Yang was stunned by this unexpected change, a furious roar reverberated over the mountain range like thunder. "Chen Yun. He has actually chased me to this place." Xiao Yang's expression instantly became ugly when he heard the roar from outside. It was unexpected that the old fellow hated him to such an extent. He had actually followed him within such a short period of time. Since Chen Yun dared to give chase, it was likely that Hong Tian Xiao had also arrived. If Xiao Yang did not use some true skill when facing 2 elite Do Zongs, it was likely that the matter today would not end well. Xiao Yang inhaled a deep breath. A ruthless expression also flashed within his eyes. These 2 old fellows were pressing him. As the saying went, a rabbit would also bite someone in its anxiety, much less Xiao Yang, who was a fierce wolf with sharp teeth. "He, little fellow, it is unexpected that the old me has found you in such a miserable setting when I woke up. It is really a blessing to my eyes." When Xiao Yang was planning to go all out in his heart, an elderly teasing laughter suddenly sounded within his heart without any forewarning. "Old Mr. Yao." Xiao Yang exclaimed when he heard this familiar laughter. A joy that was difficult to hide surged into his eyes. Over a dozen figures were suspended in the azure sky. They were all scattered and their gazes were carefully scanning the mountain range below. These were all people who had come chasing after Xiao Yang. Each of them carried an incomparable anger and killing intent. However, they were unaware of just what Xiao Yang was thinking at this moment. "Chen Yun, didn't you say that that brat had been struck by your blood lightning seal? You should be able to detect his exact spot. Where is he?" A red-clothed, yellow-faced, old man finally turned his head, furiously demanded information from the grey-clothed old man beside him after failing to find any traces despite having searched for a while. Chen Yun's expression was a little gloomy at this moment. He had sensed that his connection with the blood lightning seal was weakening on his way here, especially when he had just entered the area around the mountain range. That connection had been completely broken at that moment. Hence, he could only rely on the route transmitted by the slight connection earlier to search. However, it was a futile effort despite having spent such a long time. "I don't know just what method that brat used to remove the blood lightning seal that I left in his body," Chen Yun gloomily replied. Honestly speaking, he was feeling extremely shocked at this moment. The difficulty involved in removing the blood lightning seal was something that he understood extremely well. However, it had been dispelled within less than half a day. This was the first time that he had been met with such an occurrence in all his years. "Didn't you have great confidence in your blood lightning seal? If I knew that this would be the case, the old me would have directly given chase." Hong Tian Xiao became furious upon hearing this. If they were to lose the connection, how would they find that brat after he had fled a great distance? "What are you roaring for? You give chase. Would you not have long since given chase if you had not been afraid of the puppet in that brat's hand?" Chen Yun frowned and spoke in a somewhat irritated manner. You are speaking nonsense. Would the old me be afraid of that brat's puppet? Hong Qianxiao furiously cried out. Once we find him, you can go and deal with that puppet. Chen Yun coldly laughed. He immediately waved his hand and a deep voice sounded. All of you should head down and search the place an inch at a time. That brat is definitely still in this mountain range. I don't believe that he can flee under my eyes. The dozen experts in the sky were startled for a moment upon hearing Chen Yun's orders, before they turned their gazes to Hong Qianxiao. They were the people invited by the Hong clan. Naturally, they needed to hear Hong Qianxiao's instruction, do as he said. Hong Qianxiao swung his sleeves and commanded them, understood. The dozen-plus invited helpers from the Hong clan finally cupped their hands and spread out after hearing the order. They slowly descended, formed a fan shape, and began searching the mountain range. Two human figures quietly flashed and appeared within a lush green forest behind Hong Qianxiao's group while they were searching for Xiao Yan. The lady among them was surprisingly Han Shui. Standing beside her was a white-clothed old man with a bitter smile. The old man's gaze passed through the gap between the branches and looked at Chen Yun's group in the distant sky. A solemn expression flashed in his eyes. Great-grandfather, will they find Xiao Yang? Han Shui's searing hot eyes looked at the invited helpers of the Hong clan as they searched the place carefully before involuntarily asking in a concerned manner. Rat, this time around, the old me wants to see just how you will be able to flee. I have promised my nephew that I will break all your limbs and bring you to him. Hong Qianxiao's gaze revealed a fierce glow as he stared at Xiao Yang. His sinister voice caused the surrounding helpers invited by the Hong clan to feel a chill in their hearts. Xiao Yang lips curled. However, this smile of his contained a frosty chill. Looks like the two of you really wish to render me dead and will definitely not give up. In that cause, allow me to take both of your lives. Hong Qianxiao immediately laughed upon seeing the smile on Xiao Yang's face. He mocked, arrogant young man. Do you really think that a puppet can save your life? The smile on Xiao Yang's face involuntarily became a little stranger when he heard this. He flicked his finger and a silver glow flashed. The earth demon puppet also surfaced in front of him. Seeing the appearance of this earth demon puppet, the helpers of the Han clan in the sky hurriedly withdrew a little. They were also extremely terrified of this fierce puppet, which had broken off one of Chen Yun's finger. Hong Qianxiao's eyes also solidified slightly when the earth demon puppet appeared. His face became slightly solemn. The troublesomeness of this puppet was something that he was also clearly aware of. Hong Qianxiao, since you said those words earlier, we'll leave this puppet to you. Leave that brat to me to deal with. Chen Yun's eyes also flickered slightly as they stared at the earth demon puppet. There was a faint fear within them. Finally, he turned his head and spoke to Hong Qianxiao. Hong Qianxiao's face immediately twitched a little upon hearing these words. He inhaled a deep breath of air and coldly laughed. Leave it to the old me. You, on the other hand, should finish that brat off as soon as possible. Relax, this time around, the old me will let him know that offending the Wind Lightning Pavilion was his greatest mistake. Chen Yun's gaze looked at Xiao Yang in a savage manner as he spoke in a dense voice. Xiao Yang merely smiled in the face of these two old fellows' ill intent. His finger gently rubbed the snow-white ring without leaving a trace. After which, he suddenly pointed at Hong Qianxiao and softly said, kill him. The earth demon puppet in front of him stomped heavily on the ground, just after Xiao Yang's voice had sounded. The mountain rocks cracked and the earth demon puppet's body shot toward the sky like a fire arrow. It violently flew toward Hong Qianxiao. Allow the old me to see just how great is this puppet. Hong Qianxiao coldly laughed when he saw the earth demon puppet coming at him with a fierce momentum. Fiery red dough chi surged out of his body like a flame in all directions. His hand was clenched and a 2-meter-long scimitar appeared in his hand. The scimitar emitted a hot force when it was swung and violently hacked at the earth demon puppet. Clang. The scimitar hacked at the earth demon puppet's shoulder. However, only some sparks were created. A white scar also appeared where the blade landed. What a hard body. Hong Qianxiao was slightly startled when he saw this. He tightly re-gripped the scimitar. He then collided head-on with the earth demon puppet, and an intense big battle erupted. Chen Yun slowly lowered his body while Hong Qianxiao was pestering the earth demon puppet. He remained suspended in the sky, just in front of Xiao Yang. His dried face revealed a frightening smile as he slowly spoke in a dense voice, Brat, you have broken off a finger of mine. Later, I will completely cripple all 10 fingers of yours. Xiao Yang smiled faintly. His feet stomped on the ground as his body rose. A short while later, he drifted and landed on a large tree. Chen Yun's hands were merely placed behind him as he watched Xiao Yang's actions. His eyes revealed ridicule as he watched Xiao Yang move from the way he saw it. Xiao Yang was merely a mouse struggling before it died in this situation. Moreover, he was the cat playing with the mouse. However, this was merely his wishful thinking. Xiao Yang completely ignored the ridicule in Chen Yun's eyes. His hands were slowly spread apart as he gradually shut his eyes. A soft mutter sounded within his heart. "Old Mr. Yao, please temporarily lend your strength to me," a soft mutter slowly sounded. A moment later, the snow-white ring on Xiao Yang's finger shook gently. Immediately, an extremely majestic and vast spiritual strength moved along Xiao Yang's arm, wildly surging into him in a flood-like manner. With the pouring of the majestic spiritual strength into Xiao Yang's body, the space around him had suddenly, but slowly become distorted. A monstrous aura that was like an awakened emperor that dominated this world. Chen Yun, those helpers from the Hong clan around and even Hong Qianxiao, who was fighting the earth demon puppet, felt a momentary dullness within their heads the instant this monstrous aura appeared. Immediately, shock that was difficult to restrain surged from deep within their hearts in a manner similar to wild grass. The majestic aura rippled around Xiao Yang's body, while the entire mountain range trembled under this frightening aura. Occasionally, a trembling whimper-like roar sounded softly within the mountain forest. The roar contained a terrified feeling within it. With the powerful spiritual strength within Xiao Yang's body, his toes slowly left the treetop. He was suspended in the empty air in the sky. Perhaps it was because of his body being filled with too much spiritual strength, but a silver-white color gradually surfaced in his eyes. This silver-white color became denser, until his eyes basically radiated this color. Looking from a distance, his original black eyes had transformed into a pair of silver-white eyes that appeared extremely cold. The rising aura continued for a moment before it came to a slow stop. Xiao Yang lowered his head slightly and looked at Chen Yun, whose expression had drastically changed. He slowly asked, "Aren't you planning on crippling my 10 fingers?" The voice was not loud, but it possessed a pressure that seemed to unroll from his spirit, causing Chen Yun's spirit to tremble as a result. What has this brat done? Why is it that he has suddenly become so strong? Looking at this aura, it is likely that he has the strength of a 7-star, or even 8-star dozong. Is this real or not? Chen Yun's expression changed rapidly. The majestic aura that had unfurled from Xiao Yang's body had indeed caused him to be shocked and filled with disbelief. He was certain that Xiao Yang's actual strength should be at the Do Huang class. However, his strength had shot up like a burning arrow in a sudden manner and reached such a frightening level. From the way he saw it, this was a ridiculous thing. Doubt flashed across Chen Yun's heart. He really had difficulty believing that Xiao Yang could increase so many levels within such a short period of time. Regardless of how the grade of a secret technique is, it would likely be difficult for it to possess such a frightening effect. Could the strength of this Do Chi be only superficial? Chen Yun's eyes were dark and solemn. He refused to believe that this game of cat and mouse had completely reversed within these short few minutes. Today, the old me shall see whether this strength of yours is real, or if it is merely just an act. A cold glint flashed across Chen Yun's eyes. He clenched his fist and lightning flickered. It agglomerated into a lightning mace. His body moved and a faint lightning roar resounded. Xiao Yang's eyes were calm as he looked at Chen Yun on the ground from the sky. An instant later, his hand suddenly reached back. A powerful spiritual strength surged before agglomerating into a 5-foot-large spiritual cannonball in his palm. Xiao Yang's arm trembled strangely and the spiritual cannonball emitted a bang before shooting out, boom. The invisible spiritual cannonball had just been shot out when it suddenly exploded around 10 feet from him. An old figure appeared in a miserable fashion before swiftly pulling back. The shock in Chen Yun's face had finally reached its peak while he withdrew. That attack earlier informed him that the majestic aura of Xiao Yang in front of him was genuine. It was not an act put up by relying on some strange qi method. He is using spiritual strength. However, even some Tier 7 alchemists have difficulty possessing such a majestic spiritual strength. Just what is the background of this brat? You wish to leave? Xiao Yang coldly laughed when he saw Chen Yun fleeing. He was indeed unable to maintain this condition for long. Hence, once he activated it, he needed to achieve something. Since this old fellow hated him to the core, he was not someone that could be left alive. A Dozone-class enemy would ultimately bring about some trouble. It was better to end it once and for all. A killing intent flashed across Xiao Yang's heart. He raised his hand and pointed it at Chen Yun, who had turned into an afterimage and fled. After which, Xiao Yang abruptly clenched it. When Xiao Yang's hand was clenched, the empty space 1,000 feet away suddenly became distorted before swiftly transforming into a substance-like spatial wall. Bang! Chen Yun, who had unleashed his maximum speed, did not discover the spatial wall that had suddenly appeared. He collided violently against it. The special rebounding strength of the spatial wall shot him. This fierce and powerful force shook Chen Yun until he felt his mouth becoming sweet. He forcefully swallowed after becoming aware of the sweetness. Chen Yun's body had just rebounded when he recovered. The first thing he did was to swiftly land his body and flee into the forest. However, before his body could land on the ground, a human figure appeared in front of him in a ghost-like manner. A fist that was covered with a vast and mighty spiritual strength smashed over without any fancy moves. Space ripples materialized wherever the fist traveled as numerous lines began to spread. They appeared like tiny black snakes filled with a frightening strength which chilled one's heart. Chen Yun's expression changed drastically in the face of this plain fist. He let out a furious roar as Do Qi surged out of his body. It agglomerated and formed a thick lightning barrier in front of him. Bang! The fist violently smashed the light barrier, and the majestic spiritual strength unleashed an extremely frightening strength, like a volcano, before trickily shaking the lightning barrier until it burst apart. The remaining strength also splashed across Chen Yun's body in a lightning-like manner. Grug! A mouthful of fresh blood was spat out as Yun Chen's body smashed into the ground by the ruthless punch. His body rubbed against the forest below, forming a deep ravine that was over 100 meters long. The trees along the way were all completely blasted apart as sawdust scattered in all directions. After borrowing Tian Huazunja's strength, Xiao Yang was able to reach the level of a 7, or even 8-star Dozone, while Chen Yun was merely a 4-star Dozone. The gap between every star in the Dozone class was extremely vast. Yet, Chen Yun wished to fight head-on with Xiao Yang. It was natural that his ending would be extremely miserable. The disheveled Chen Yun stopped his body with much difficulty, before throwing up a mouthful of fresh blood. The firm punch of Xiao Yang had caused him to suffer a serious injury. Moreover, that spiritual strength seemed to be unusually hot and violent. Some of the spiritual strength that had invaded his body had already begun a destruction on a great scale. Chen Yun's condition was extremely terrible upon facing this combination of external and internal attacks. If this continues, I will really die in that little bastard's hand. I cannot continue to be entangled with him. Chen Yun's eyes contained a viciousness, as he wiped off the blood trace from the corner of his mouth. He was just about to flee into the mountain range, when that ghost-like figure once again appeared in front of him like the maggot in one's tarsal bones. Xiao Yang, the Wind Lightning Pavilion will not let you off if you kill me. Chen Yun hurriedly cried out. His heart felt a shock upon seeing Xiao Yang chasing him once again. Chen Yun spat out a mouthful of fresh blood when the wild and violent strength erupted. His body flew backwards and broke a countless number of enormous trees along the way. Hong Qian Xiao looked at Chen Yun, who was basically unable to retaliate, from the distant sky. His expression also changed. Ancestor, should we lend a hand? An invited helper swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he softly asked. Hong Qian Xiao's eyes changed rapidly. He immediately looked at the earth demon puppet that had been delayed a little by a couple of people from the Hong clan, before clenching his teeth and giving a command, retreat. Don't bother with him. That little fellow's strength is far too frightening now. Adding this to the puppet, we will only be courting death regardless of how many of us step forward. After saying this, Hong Qian Xiao decisively waved his hand, turned around, and fled without any hesitation. The other people from the Hong clan behind also hurriedly followed. Chen Yun's entire body was covered with mud as he climbed up from the ground with much difficulty. He appeared extremely miserable with fresh blood flowing down from his head. Additionally, he looked ferocious. He had suffered a serious injury after having received a couple of full-force attacks from Xiao Yang. Even the veins in his body had begun to show signs of breaking. Xiao Yang's spiritual strength was an extremely destructive with the support of the heavenly flame. Chen Yun panted heavily through his mouth. The space in front of him rippled and Xiao Yang's figure once again slowly appeared. Are you still able to run? Xiao Yang's voice was completely emotionless, as his silver-white-colored eyes stared at Chen Yun, which possessed a weary aura. Little bastard. Since you wish to kill the old me shall drag you to die with me. Chen Yun's eyes gradually turned crimson. A craziness surged onto his face. Immediately, he charged angrily towards Xiao Yan. His body also swiftly swelled, appearing like a balloon that was about to explode. Xiao Yan frowned slightly in the face of Chen Yun's crazy act. Self-destruct her. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.